Dear friends, good afternoon. This is a part of the concluding program of the Asiatic Society on the observance of 150 years of birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi. As you know, the Asiatic Society belongs to the Ministry of Culture, Government of India as an autonomous body. The Government of India decided to initiate a detailed program throughout the year on this observance. As part of that, the Asiatic Society also took up a very detailed program throughout the year, including series of lectures, seminars, national and international, and publications of Mahatma Gandhi. As you know, the moment we cultivate Mahatma Gandhi, immediately we are intellectually related with Gandhi through Professor Nirmal Kumar Bose. As you know, Professor Nirmal Kumar Bose was Gandhi's personal secretary during his tour to Noakhali, Kolkata, Patna in 1946-47. Those were the days of riot-torn areas, and Professor Bose acted as his private secretary in those days. But much before Bose was with Gandhi, he himself was interested in Gandhian studies. By 1940-1934, he published two books, Selections from Gandhi and Studies in Gandhiism. And afterwards, he also completed another book, that was My Days with Gandhi, which was published in 1953. But Asiatic Society decided to reprint the Studies in Gandhiism, a selection precisely on its political philosophical tenets. And that is how our program started with lecture on October 2018 and followed it up through other lectures throughout the year and ended in September 2019. That apart, we had organized a national seminar on 12th and 13th February in Kolkata, and we also collaborated with one international seminar with the Council for Social Development in Delhi. As you know, Professor Bose, not only as a worker of the Congress those days, as an academician, he was very intimately interested to study the philosophical tenets of Gandhi about the Satyagraha, non-cooperation and non-violence, etc. And these are replete in his publications. So, Professor Bose was also president of the Asiatic Society in 1972, and he died while in chair. The Asiatic Society will close its program with a virtual exhibition on the theme Mahatma in the Eyes of a Gandhian Anthropologist, Professor Nirmal Kumar Bose, erstwhile President of the Asiatic Society.
Epitomizing a blend of indomitable moral courage and profound sympathy for the not-so-privileged, Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, who once candidly remarked, "My life is my message," had been aptly described by Gurudev Rabindranath Tagore. He was truly a Mahatma, a great soul. His greatness lies in his search for truth, his firm conviction in the efficacy of non-violence as a tool of protest against the demonic power, his love for universal humanity shorn of any communal color, and above all, his relentless struggle to win independence of his country from British subjugation.
Born on 2nd October 1869 at Porbandar in Gujarat, Gandhiji reached Southampton, England in 1888 and enrolled at the Inner Temple Inn of Court. The year 1893 was a landmark in the life of young Gandhi as he reached Durban, Natal in South Africa, wherefrom he started his crusade against Black Act and apartheid used as a tool of oppression by the white. The term Satyagraha as a medium of protest was adopted in 1908. At the request of Gopal Krishna Gokhale, conveyed to him by C.F. Andrews, Gandhiji returned to India in 1915, signaling thereby the beginning of a long struggle for independence of India. Because of his profound mass appeal, he succeeded in bringing the vast milieu under one umbrella to raise their protest against British tyranny and exploitation. In 1919, he organized national agitation by taking recourse to Satyagraha against Rowlatt Act. As leader of Indian National Congress in 1921, Gandhiji raised his voice against various social and economic maladies like untouchability, discrimination against Indians, and finally issued the clarion call for winning Swaraj, self-rule. Gandhiji ignited the sense of nationalism in the vast toiling mass of India using charkha or spinning wheel as a token of solidarity with the disadvantaged strata, and finally organized a mass protest against the salt tax imposed by the British in 1930. The British also retaliated by imprisoning him several times, but nothing could deter him from voicing his final call for absolute independence of India. Quit India. Despite his reservation against partition and persistent efforts to stop communal violence in different parts of the country, national leaders accepted partition of India as an inevitability. A truncated India became independent on 15th August 1947. On 30th January 1948, Gandhiji was assassinated. The most illustrious leader of Indian history breathed his last on that fateful day. As a part of his travel in various parts of India with an objective to interact with the vast milieu and to inculcate a feeling of nationalism in them, Gandhiji visited Bengal on several occasions. His first visit to Bengal was on July 4, 1896, when he disembarked in Calcutta on his return from South Africa. He had interaction and exchange of opinion with several illustrious figures of the then Bengal like Deshbandhu Chittaranjan Das, Acharya Prafulla Chandra Ray, Jagadish Chandra Bose, Bipin Chandra Pal, to name a few. Another Bengali icon who had lasting relationship with Gandhiji was Rabindranath Tagore. On February 17, 1915, Gandhiji visited Shantiniketan for the first time, and between 1915 and 1945, he came to Shantiniketan 6 times. Despite difference of opinion over a number of issues, Tagore-Gandhi relationship was cemented with mutual love, respect, and admiration for each other. It was Gandhiji whom Rabindranath requested in his last days to look after Vishwabharati and Shantiniketan after his demise. Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose was another Bengali pioneer for whom Gandhiji always nurtured love and affection. Difference of opinion on certain vital political issues notwithstanding. But there was another Bengali erudite scholar, a renowned professor of anthropology, who even before meeting Gandhiji personally led a life of austerity modeled on Gandhiji's ideal, authored books on Gandhiji, and who had the opportunity of accompanying Gandhiji in the most troubled time of history, that is, riot at Noakhali in Bengal. Despite Bose's reservation to travel with Gandhiji and his insistence in explaining your teachings through books and articles in English and Bengali, Gandhiji himself was keen to have Bose as his associate.
It is necessary that one could actually see me at work and not merely gather from my writings. If you remain with me and also travel with me, you may observe many things which will help you to understand me better.
This observation explicitly shows the trust Gandhiji nurtured about Bose. Gandhiji reiterated his stance that to understand Gandhiji, it was imperative to be in proximity with him.
So, you see why I am anxious that anyone who really wants to understand an ideal should also observe how it actually works out in life.
The opportunity to accompany Gandhiji came to Bose under extremely unfortunate circumstance, as Bengal was burning due to communal riot in 1946. That was the beginning of a new relationship between Gandhiji and Nirmal Kumar Bose, decked with veneration and respect for each other.
a professor, scholar, and researcher, Professor Nirmal Kumar Bose had always maintained an endearing relationship with the Asiatic Society since his enrollment as a member in 1949. Since adolescence, Bose was a regular user of the library of the Asiatic Society, and he frankly admitted his indebtedness to the library in his academic pursuit. His love for the Asiatic Society prompted him to accept the post of Library Secretary of the Asiatic Society during the year 1965-66, when attempts were perpetrated to serve the readers with better facilities. As Anthropological Secretary of the Society, 1959-62, and again in 1966-68, he inspired his students to work on a few socio-anthropological issues, the outcome of which has been published in the form of monograph by the Society. He was elected as Vice President and a Fellow of the Society in 1971 and its President in February 1972. The Society also showered on Bose several accolades. He was awarded Anandal Memorial Medal for the year 1948 and Sarat Chandra Roy Memorial Medal for 1967 in recognition of his outstanding contribution in anthropology.
Nirmal Kumar Bose wrote,
"Many years ago, I planned to write 4 books on Gandhi. The first was to be a book of collection from his English writings, which would serve as an epitome of his thoughts on various subjects. The second was to give an outline of his economic and political ideas while tracing their evolution. The third on his personality and on the actual manner of his execution of ideas into practice. And the fourth, a critical account of the various Satyagraha movements which have occurred from time to time on the Indian soil."
Bose could not write the fourth, but his first book, Selections from Gandhi, had been considered as an anthological representation of Gandhi's ideas. Professor Nirmal Kumar Bose's anthropological vision was thoroughly influenced by Gandhian philosophy. His study and research on Gandhiji helped him to unravel a new vista of anthropological study in India. Bose himself spoke about Gandhian influence on him.
"I have tried to study Gandhi's writings with reverence and have endeavored to keep my mind as far as possible free from personal preconceptions, so that the meaning of what he has written may come clearly to me."
Despite his disagreement with Gandhiji on operation of a higher law ruling human destiny, Bose was thoroughly influenced by Gandhiji's commitment to the poor and helpless, and this prompted him to take up social work for uplifting the underprivileged section of the society. He perceived Gandhiji as a rebel who not only struggled to change himself but also the society and other men through love and non-violent persuasion. He advocated Satyagraha, preached by Gandhiji as the struggle of an individual, engulfed on all sides by the prevailing darkness towards truth. Bose wrote,
fasting of one Satyagrahi of the purest kind was, according to him, enough to bring about the downfall of an empire or its benign transformation.
Bose's fascination for Gandhian ideology has been reflected in his book Studies in Gandhism and numerous other essays. Since anthropology is a science of humanity, Bose's approach towards cultural anthropology was influenced by Gandhi's vision of universal love for mankind and his relentless struggle against oppression and tyranny. As early as in 1929, Bose wrote,
The historical, geographical, economic, or morphological aspects of culture are, in fact, setting of a drama which is essentially human in import and direction.
That Gandhian impact has framed his views as an anthropologist is evident from his small book Cultural Anthropology. Bose asserted in his book that material happiness can never be the be-all and end-all of everything. On the contrary, love for others and universalism is the key to happiness. Bose wrote,
Gandhi believed that there is another type of happiness which results from the realization of the brotherhood of man and ordering of one's personal life in accordance with the interests of the whole community. Such exercise of human life, which springs from a sense of human unity, gives a more lasting type of happiness than the mere satisfaction of hunger and sex can bring about.
in tune with Gandhiji's view that India lives in villages, Bose tried to link village uplift work with anthropological studies. As director of Anthropological Survey of India, he organized a project to study a carefully selected list of material cultural traits found in the villages of India. In a book, Peasant Life in India, a study in unity and diversity in India, based on the project, Bose wrote,
Let our action in India be inspired by the noblest ideals of which we have been made heirs through the life of martyrdom of Mahatma Gandhi, and let our altruistic endeavors at the same time not be colored by any kind of sentimentalism, but be inspired by the highest academic discipline which we can attain in our scientific enterprises.
The impact of Gandhism on Bose signaled beginning of a new era in Indian anthropological studies, as contrary to the descriptive exercise of Western anthropologists to project Indian cultural system as conglomeration of a few isolated traits without having any reference to its intrinsic unity. Bose emulated the model of Gandhiji in emphasizing Indian unity and diversity, thereby igniting India's dogged determination to achieve freedom.
Nirmal Kumar Bose's association with Gandhiji started from his student days when he immersed himself in the writings of Gandhiji. Inspired by Gandhiji's ideals, he left college in 1921 to join non-cooperation movement steered by Gandhiji. His eagerness to promote the cause for which Gandhiji struggled prompted him to organize a camp of repatriated indentured Indian laborers from East and West Indies and South Africa under the guidance of CF and Roos. The impetus of Gandhiji motivated him to undertake a mission for propagation of Khadi by organizing Khadi Shangho and an adult literary center, Shiksha Ghar, at Bolpur in 1930. His dedication to Gandhian ideals led him to join active politics as he participated in Salt Satyagraha launched by Gandhiji and was jailed at Suri and Damdam Central Jail in 1930 to 32. Long before he met Gandhiji in person, Bose was not only inspired by Gandhiji's thoughts and ideas as embodied in Gandhiji's book Hind Swaraj and others, but resolved to participate in freedom movement bolstered by Gandhiji. He was also familiar with Gandhiji's ideas on social transformation of India.
Along with Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan, Bose first met Gandhiji on 9th November 1934 at the top of the Mohila Ashram or Women's Institute in Wardha. He placed 4 questions before Gandhiji, and Gandhiji's answers to at least 2 of them deserve mention. Gandhiji said,
"The aim of Khadi is humanitarian, but so far as India is concerned, its effect is bound to be immensely political. The law of Varna admitted of no distinction of high and low. This great law has been degraded and fallen into disrepute. But my conviction is that an ideal social order will only be evolved when the implications of this law are fully understood and given effect to."
The letter from Bose, addressed to President of Shangho, suggesting collection of Gandhiji's writings in a central place and issue of booklets containing a critical edition of Gandhiji's writings on specific questions, was handed over to Gandhiji himself, and the suggestions made were approved by Gandhiji. Slowly and gradually, a bond of mutual trust and dependence emerged between Bose and Gandhiji. Despite Gandhiji's physical absence in the meet, an opportunity to meet votaries of non-violence from different parts of the country stimulated him once again about Gandhiji's ideals. Thus wrote Bose,
"Those precious interviews had, however, reinforced me in the belief that primacy should be given to ideas before one could carry out even action satisfactorily. Otherwise, action tended to degenerate into dead routine."
On 13th October 1945, Khurshid Nauroji wrote a letter to Nirmal Kumar Bose stating that Gandhiji will be coming soon to Bengal and you should be with him for some time at least. On 3rd December 1945, Bose met Gandhiji at Shodhpur and through his letter expressed his desire to devote in studies about Gandhiji. Gandhiji initially agreed. But in the second meeting held on 4th December 1945, Gandhiji made his stance clear that he wanted Bose to be with him for better understanding of him.
If you remain with me and also travel with me, you may observe many things which will help you to understand me better.
Gandhiji's desire to have Bose as his companion was fulfilled shortly. Bose was entrusted by Satish Dasgupta to take questions from several hundred Congress workers assembled on the 5th and 6th of January 1946, and the answers along with questions were later published. The theory of trusteeship, which interested Bose most, was also discussed.
As an aftermath of refusal to accept two-nation theory, communal violence of a fierce scale erupted in Calcutta on 16th August 1946. Gandhiji reached Calcutta on 20th October 1946. Bose actively participated in all activities to assist Gandhiji. In the meantime, riots started in Noakhali, situated in a distant part of Bengal. In the absence of other associates who had already left for Noakhali, Bose read out morning papers to Gandhiji. Bose had the opportunity of coming close to him. This proximity finally led Bose to understand Gandhiji as a man, not as a saint. This bond was not merely personal but spiritual, which helped Bose to understand Gandhi, who wanted to change himself and society as well through love and non-violent persuasion. Bose was with Gandhiji when he left Kolkata for Noakhali on 6 November 1946. In his My Days with Gandhi, Bose recorded excerpt of Gandhiji's speech at Gwalanda Ghat on 6 November 1946. He said,
Let us pray that Hindus and Muslims of Bengal should become one heart. But to be of one heart does not mean that all of them should be converted to a common religion.
On 12th November 1946, Gandhiji wrote a letter to Bose.
I do need you for any work that may be assigned to you by me directly or through Satish Babu. If you are agreeable, please come without delay.
On his arrival, Gandhiji gave him a sheet of paper in his own handwriting.
I want you, if you can and will, to be with me whenever I go and stay while I am in Bengal. The idea is that I should be alone only with you as my companion and interpreter. This you should do only if you can sever your connection with the university and would care to risk death, starvations, etc.
Bose agreed. He became the private secretary to Gandhiji from November 1946 to March 1947 and continued again in Calcutta from May to September 1947. During his stay in Noakhali, in those dark days of hate, mistrust and communal violence, Bose kept his notes in his diary, which became invaluable document for the posterity. During his stay at Noakhali, Gandhiji decided to learn Bengali so that he can communicate with people. Bose became his teacher in Bengali. Bose collected Bengali primer from which Gandhiji tried to practice Bengali alphabets.
On 20th November 1946, in course of his journey to Sitarampur, Gandhiji, thoroughly disillusioned and sad because of his communal flare-up, drafted a statement expressing his confidence in Bose in that hour of despair.
I am unable to discover the truth. There is terrible mutual distrust. Older friendships have snapped. I am going to a village called Srirampur, cutting myself away from those who have been with me all these years and who have made life easy for me. I am taking Professor Nirmal Kumar Bose as my Bengali teacher and interpreter.
On 20th November 1946, during a personal conversation about the economic condition of Hindus and Muslims in Noakhali, Bose felt
his intention of liquidating all class interest through non-violent, non-cooperation and substituting the primacy of mass interest has been made abundantly clear and has never been clouded either in his vision or expression.
the forcible conversion of Hindus was sickening to Gandhiji, and the image of a bewildered Gandhiji did not go unnoticed in Bose's eyes.
Twice during the whole day, I heard him muttering to himself, "Kya karu? Kya karu? What should I do? What should I do?"
It is a historically accepted fact that Gandhiji was extremely unhappy over partition of India. Bose described Gandhiji's attitude on this vital question.
My feeling, however, was that Gandhiji no longer relied upon the Congress in its present shape and form to serve as his instrument of collective non-violence. Gandhiji suppressed himself more or less completely and left the organization free to follow its own course.
Gandhiji's frustration over the partition issue has been resonating in the description of Bose.
Bose described with meticulous details Gandhiji's observance of one-day fast on 15th August 1947 in observance of the Day of Deliverance of India. when communal riot erupted in Bengal on 31st August 1947, Gandhiji once again went on a fast for allaying communal frenzy and restoration of sanity in Calcutta on 1st September 1947 and broke it on 4th September. Bose described in details the circumstances under which it was broken.
In the concluding lines of his book, My Days with Gandhi, Bose emphasized how martyrdom had made Gandhiji glowing in a new light.
India is blessed because she gave birth to one who became Gandhi, and perhaps blessed again that by dealing him the blow of death, we endowed his life, and with an added radiance, we shall enrich the heritage of humankind in all ages to come.
Amidst the galaxy of scholars, critics and followers of Gandhiji, Nirmal Kumar Bose stands unparalleled in his unbiased assessment of Gandhiji as a man, as a political leader, and as an apostle of peace and non-violence. Gandhiji's gospel of work also attracted him. In a world marred by violence and mistrust, Gandhiji's message of love and tolerance has its relevance even today. In the words of Professor Nirmal Kumar Bose,
Gandhi's plan to bring about social change not through punishment but by conversion has a deep appeal for me, and I believe it would be worthwhile to give it a fair trial on a large scale in a world now living under the dark shadow of war. Indeed, Gandhiji recognized that the supreme task facing mankind was to find an effective substitute for war.
Bose's dedication to Gandhiji remained unabated even after the demise of Gandhiji in 1948. Bose took upon himself the cudgel of propagating the ideals of Gandhiji in US and many other countries. Awarded Padma Shri by Government of India in 1966, he adorned many coveted positions. He, however, could not complete his term as President of the Asiatic Society. But his contribution to the Gandhian Anthropology in particular and the Asiatic Society and academia in general remain unparalleled.